Don't take a long trip without travel insurance, right? Well, not so fast. I'm going to take you through the ins and outs of travel insurance and what it's like to put in a claim based on my own experience. And maybe you won't be so eager to purchase travel insurance the next time. I'm Michael Davis. My wife Heather and I are what's called slow travelers. We created this channel in order to share with you not only our adventures, but also the things that we're learning and trying to figure out. I purchased an annual travel insurance policy. And because I thought I was protected, I didn't always take the precautions that I think you should take. Now, travel insurance is advertised heavily. They often talk about how often they pay for their claims, and it seems like a no-brainer. What if you get sick or hurt overseas? You want those costs to be covered, right? Doctor, hospital, etc. What if your flight is canceled? You want your hotel to be covered if you have to cancel or you can't get to your next leg. What if you miss a flight and that was a non-cancelable flight, and so now you're out of pocket, right? There's all sorts of reasons why you would want to have travel insurance. A big one in my mind is evacuation. If you're really sick or injured, the cost of evacuation back to your home country could be very, very expensive. So let's take a look at all that, because travel insurance has now become very expensive. It used to be very inexpensive, and you were kind of providing a backup coverage, spend a little bit of money and take a lot of the risk out of your flight or your travels. I'm not so sure. For instance, I won't be purchasing travel insurance again in all likelihood. I certainly won't be doing an annual policy. And if I do purchase travel insurance, it'll probably only be with a company that I have already had experience with and who acted in good faith on the claim. I'll be taking you through two different companies that I've had experience with. One did everything right and honestly and in good faith, and the second company did everything they could do to keep from paying my claim. Now, part of that is the one company, the claim was fairly small. The second company, the claim was fairly large. It was thousands of dollars, okay? So they probably decide to draw the line in part based on the size of your claim. But anyway, let's walk through travel insurance. First of all, in the law, it's known as an adhesion contract. That means there's no negotiation. You take it or leave it. You don't call up your travel insurance company or go online in the application and say, no, I would like you to change this provision. I want you to cover this in case it happens. And also you're asking too much money. I want to pay $100 less. No, there's no negotiation. And so, in fact, I don't think most of us even look at the fine print in a contract when we buy travel insurance. They tell us all the wonderful things they cover. We'll pay $25,000 for medical costs, et cetera, et cetera. And we don't look at the fine print. Of course, it's not always easy to even see the fine print before you purchase the contract. The fine print shows up after you put in a claim. And so everything in the contract is designed to benefit the company and to put you at a disadvantage. That's just natural, okay? And they can do that because, one, they're not looking for your repeat business necessarily. Most people aren't taking large trips that require insurance year after year after year. So often, you're going to be a fairly infrequent customer, even if it's even more than once. And so they're not terribly concerned about your patronage in the future. Now, after I walk you through all this and scare you about travel insurance, stick around to the end, because I'm going to cover the things that you can do very easily and cheaply to replace travel insurance. So it's not a situation where it's all or nothing here, okay? So first, let's take a look. If you do put in a claim, all the fine print has been written to disadvantage you. So that's the starting point, okay? It's not easy to get a claim covered. And then when there's any kind of a gray area, because obviously every situation is different, every illness or accident or trip is different, um, they're going to interpret the fine print their way. Again, that's their right. That's how they drafted the contract. The key is to find a company that looks at these things in good faith, that tries to give you the benefit of the doubt, right? When I was putting in my claim, I said, look, no one leaves the beach on the Mediterranean unless they really have to, right? I wasn't just scamming you, and plus I had all sorts of documentation, but every step of the way they denied it. I'll relay some of what they did there in a minute. But that's the first thing. They're going to interpret the fine print against you. So for instance, one biggie, if you do have a medical situation while you're traveling, you typically have to go to a doctor in that country. Now, if you're not really sick, you're sick enough that you feel like you need to get back to your doctor or maybe get back to the treatment that you've had in the past that you need, but you're not deathly ill, you're not ready to go into a hospital, etc. And so you just fly home and get treatment there. Also, if you have Medicare or really good insurance, most of your medical bills there will be covered, right? And so that's the logical thing you might think of doing. I'm not horribly sick. I can get to the airport. I can handle a 5 or 6 hour or whatever flight it is and get back home where I can get treatment. Guess what? That's going to nullify your travel insurance claim. You have to seek treatment within the home country. Now, that's all out of pocket. So you're going to have to advance those costs and then hope that your travel insurance company is going to reimburse you for that claim. So that's the first dicey little piece. The second piece is every decision that you make, and this could be in a tricky situation if you're sick or you've been hurt or things are moving fast, you've only got one flight that really works. You're going to have to make every decision for your own health and your own family or travel companions based on the fine print. So you can't make good faith decision and then come back to them and say, well, this is what was happening. I thought if I could get home, you guys wouldn't have to pay for any of my healthcare costs. I could get the treatment and the drug that I needed. And I wasn't so sick that I needed to go into the hospital in country. And they're going to say, no coverage. And so good decisions often line up in a way that contradicts being able to comply with the fine print and the contract. Now, that might be the last thing that you want to do, is to get treatment in country with a doctor you don't know in a country that may not have top-notch health care, that sort of thing, and go out of pocket for it, wondering if the travel insurance company is going to reimburse in good faith. So pretty dicey little situation. Another situation, and this one I got snared in, is pre-existing condition. Pre-existing condition has a typical definition. That is, you've had a health problem that was serious enough that you had to seek treatment, maybe even go on medication for. And so typically a pre-existing condition is defined as something that you've received treatment for, you're seeing a doctor for right now, and you're on medication, okay? Now, in my situation, I had been treated for a condition many years prior, like 5 years prior. And I was not being treated by a doctor, hadn't been treated by a doctor in years, and I was on no medications, never went on any medications. And they said that my symptoms were from a pre-existing condition. So it was a definition of a pre-existing condition that isn't even the normal one, right? And so again, If you're dealing with a company that doesn't operate in good faith, they're going to find every way they can to keep from giving you reimbursement on your claim. What else do I have here? Well, I think those are probably the biggest examples that I have. Those are some of the biggest pitfalls. Now, obviously, if you have a claim for some lost luggage, or if a flight's been canceled and you're out of pocket, or you have to get an extra hotel room while you're waiting to be rescheduled, something like that, often the travel insurance will be fine on that, providing you can document, the actual events. But here's the thing. Your airline will already pay for that. Your airline will already reimburse you for lost or damaged luggage. Your airline will typically put you up in a hotel overnight if flights have been canceled legitimately. Not that you were late to the airport or something, but there's been weather or something like that. Often the airlines will help you out. How about just dealing with good people? I was in a situation where I had to cancel a non-cancelable Airbnb. I contacted the people, laid the situation out. They would have been completely in their rights to say, no, this is non-cancelable. We're not giving your deposit back. And yet I laid it out for them. These were good people, and my money was back in my account the next day. So you're not going to get that treatment with a large corporation that issues travel insurance policies, okay? Another angle, check your own health insurance. Many health insurance companies will pay for emergency treatment or accidents overseas. And you can call up your agent if you're not comfortable reading your policy and find out if you have coverage. I have a Medicare Advantage plan, and it provides the same coverage that I had with my travel insurance policy. Paid for medical, paid for hospital, paid for accident, provided for evacuation. And those costs might not have to be put out of pocket, right? In other words, if you're able to work with your insurance company back in the US, you might be able to have them advance those costs if they get the appropriate documentation. Doing it under the travel insurance way is you got to put, you got to go out of pocket on those medical costs and then seek reimbursement. So travel insurance may not even be that great on a lot of the things that are the very reason you went and bought the policy anyway. And so what a bummer it is to pay out of pocket for a policy that doesn't even give you the safety or the protection that you were hoping for. So it's a double whammy, right? You're screwed on both ends. So what can you do, right? I mean, obviously it's a little spooky to go on a long trip and not have coverage. Well, here's a couple of tips. First, don't do any reservations in Airbnb or similar companies that aren't cancelable. Almost always, if an Airbnb is cancelable, it's about a month before your reservations start to begin, if it's a long trip or a trip that's several months away. Now, if you're reserving an Airbnb for this coming weekend, quite often you can cancel them up to the day before you're supposed to arrive. Now, not all Airbnbs are cancelable. Many are just 48 hours. Avoid those like the plague, unless it's just the greatest deal in the world. But understand you're taking a risk. But let's say you're taking a trip 6 months from now. You reserve an Airbnb, and by the way, I would recommend that you reserve an Airbnb that far in advance. I've seen the inexpensive, really desirable ones disappear many, many months before I was about to take a trip. So again, Airbnb will require you typically to put down the first month deposit, but not always. Sometimes there's payment plans and other things that are available through hosts. But if you can cancel up to a month before, then you've got a lot of protection that something big doesn't happen in the intervening months, right? Now, there's another angle as well, and that is booking. Booking, I think their claim to fame is to have most reservations be cancelable and no deposit required. So typically, booking reservations look and act a lot like hotel reservations. And that is where you don't put any deposit down. They might take your payment info, but you have up until 24 hours before arrival to cancel. Now that takes the risk out of your travel to an incredible extent, right? If something happens, flight's delayed, you get sick, car accident, what have you, all the things that can happen in life, there it is, just a right online, you cancel booking. The same way with Airbnb. It's an online automatic cancellation. Very, very easy. So again, we talked about looking at your own insurance, because your insurance often will cover many of the things that you thought you needed travel insurance for, and they might do it better, right? You may not have to come out of pocket. Also, the airlines will cover things like lost luggage, canceled flights, etc. So travel insurance starts looking a lot like, you're doubling up. You just don't need to do that. There's obviously going to be some circumstances that happen where you might not be able to get coverage without travel insurance. But what I'm telling you is many, many times you won't be able to get coverage under travel insurance anyway, and actually be reimbursed. And then another approach that I just mentioned was trying to work it out with your host. I've had hosts be very accommodating when I was able to show I had a real legitimate problem, because something can happen in that intervening month, right? Also, Airbnb has travel insurance right online, and it's often just for that stay, and so it typically is cheaper than a separate travel insurance policy. You can look at that. I have not put a claim in with Airbnb, so I don't know whether they act in good faith, whether they will take the scorched earth approach that other companies have taken. So I can't speak to that, but that might be a cheaper way of just covering that piece of your trip. Also, finally, here's a huge difference between travel insurance companies and all the other travel companies that you're dealing with. All the others want your repeat business. The airline is not going to screw you if they can avoid it. I mean, if you have some legitimate argument, some legitimate situation that you can document, my experience has been the airlines will work with you. I've seen multiple examples of non-cancelable flights be provided with a credit. And there's a slight discount. They take a little bit off, kind of a handling fee for moving it into a credit. But even though your flight is cancelable, and obviously non-cancelable flights are cheaper, so you may be out a little bit up front here. But what I'm telling you is that when something bad happens and it's legit, you just didn't change your mind or you're homesick or something, but something legitimate has happened, you call up that airline. Like I say, I've seen multiple instances, including my own, of non-cancelable flights being turned into credits that you can then use within the year. Pretty amazing. And so again, all of these things add up to you don't really need travel insurance unless you have some really extraordinary or unusual circumstances. Maybe you're going to a very dangerous place, or you're going on a trip which is just not your ordinary, let's go to a tourist trap, stay in a nice hotel type thing. But I think hopefully after watching this video, you're going to realize you really need to weigh the risks on travel insurance. So what else do I want to talk about here? Well, I have specific experience with two companies. TravelX is a travel insurance company that I've put a claim in with, and they were fantastic. They also tend to be cheaper on short trips than anybody else out there that I have found. But they weren't just cheap and then screwed you on the claim side. And so we went through the claims process with them. They played it straight. They didn't play any games. They negotiated in good faith, and we got full coverage of a plane ticket that was non-cancelable. TravelX, recommend them highly if you still think you need travel insurance. What I'm trying to tell you right now is I doubt I'm going to be doing travel insurance, and I'm talking about traveling months and months at a time. I don't see a lot of the value anymore. Obviously, it's going to depend on where I'm going, time of year, things like that. But hopefully you look at this much, much more closely. Now, a final company, a Travel Guard, do not use them. They declared in my claim that I had a pre-existing condition, even though I was not under the care of a physician, hadn't been for years, even though I was on no medication, never was. And they just simply said, nope, pre-existing condition by our definition. Now, under that definition, if you've ever been sick or ever been in the hospital or ever needed treatment, even if it's years ago, then you can't travel because you're not going to be covered by a travel insurance policy. Anyway, they did not negotiate in good faith. I'm not going to go into great detail, but that is not a company that I can recommend. And I say that specifically on my own personal experience. All right, well, there you have it. I hope this is of some help to you. If it is, like, subscribe. You know the rules. We'd love to have you join us. I hope in the months to come that we can start providing much more regular kinds of videos to help you on your journey, especially with the big summertime trips coming up. And so join us, and I look forward to responding to any comments you might make in the comments section. If you've had a good experience with a travel insurance company, let us all know. Tell us who it is. If you've had a bad experience, let us know. And by the way, if you go in and look for reviews of travel insurance companies, you're going to find that the majority of the reviews are very similar to what I'm telling you here. So anyway, take a second look at travel insurance. Happy travels. Take care, everybody.